Let me tell you the story of Joe Crystal. He's a guy who's wanted to be a cop his whole life. Let me give you his background and understand, you know what? He is honest. And you're going to see that throughout the story. People always say, look, where are the good cops? Well, we found him. It's Joe Crystal. The question is, what happens to that good cop? So let's give you his background first so you know who he is, so you'll understand why he did what he did. Ever since he was a kid, according to Huffington Post, in New Jersey, Crystal wanted to be a cop. His parents met while working for the NYPD. His father was forced to retire after his head was bashed with a bat during a bodega robbery attempt. So, guy's always wanted to be a cop. He's got nothing against cops. He understands the dangers that cops live under all the time. It happened to his dad. At 18, Crystal joined the Coast Guard, where he would stay for the next 6 years. The day after the 9/11 attacks, Crystal went to Ground Zero, where he volunteered with Bucket Brigade to sift through the rubble. So, heroic actions right there at 9/11 to try to help people. Crystal applied to be a Baltimore police officer in 2008. He graduated from the police academy with top test scores. In 2009, he received the Commissioner's Award given to the trainee who shows the most leadership. Now, this is exactly the kind of cop you're looking for, right? We asked for it, we got it, great. And then a current Baltimore police officer said anonymously, for reasons you'll see in a second as to why he's anonymous, he was a really good detective when he was here. He had a lot of passion, a lot of drive. He was a natural fit. Good. So when he starts on the job, it turns out what they had seen on him earlier is correct. He was smart in the test scores that he got. He showed good leadership. He was an honest guy. Okay. And furthermore, Joe Crystal liked working in Baltimore's poor communities because that's where he felt he could affect the most change. He said, quote, "You really impact somebody's life. In a lot of ways, it can be the most rewarding job you've ever seen." I mean, Baltimore can't ask for anything better, right? Smart leadership and actually wants to serve the community. Perfect. And they say that these guys aren't around. They are around. There he is. It's Joe Crystal. So give credit to the cops where they deserve it. Okay. Now here's where the problem comes. He actually meant it. So one day, they're out doing their job, and he's with a couple of other cops. And they get this guy who throws what appears to be his drugs down and starts running. They've seen this a million times. He's a cop. They've gone and arrested guys like that thousands of times. So this guy runs, and as he's running, he barges into one of the houses. What he doesn't know is that's the house of one of the other cops' partner. Okay, so the wife is in the house, and that particular cop, a guy named Williams, is told about it afterwards. Ooh, this is not going to end well. So they arrest the guy. In the beginning, no problem. They capture the guy inside the house. They handcuff him as they should. They put him in the van, and they're going to bring him to headquarters. Well, here's where the trouble comes. When Williams finds out this guy broke into his wife's house, oh boy. So he says, no, turn the van around. They turn the van around. They bring the guy, in this case the accused, back into the house. And that's where we pick up the story. But just out of view, Crystal heard Gilmas and Williams throw Green, the accused here, to the ground. For several minutes, he could hear the handcuffed suspect grunting and moaning as the officers kicked and punched him. And he says this is what happened afterwards. He's limping on his ankle, which I later found out was broken. I honestly mean it when I say this. I never in a million years thought something like this would happen. Now, that is Crystal's version of events, and he doesn't really want to talk about it. He goes to a commanding officer. He says, I saw this thing. I don't know what to do about it. The officer says, are you nuts? Shut up. Don't say anything. Then he's later having lunch with someone who's an attorney that works with the city, and they say, hey, listen, if you're going to say anything more, we're going to have to open up a case. And he's racked with indecision and guilt about this because he saw them basically pummel this guy, and then he knows what the police report says. So what does the police report say? It says, once inside the wagon, this is the official police report, Green calmed down and expressed a desire to apologize to the victim for breaking into her home. After he was taken back into the house, Green attempted to charge and headbutt off-duty officer Williams. Now, Crystal knows that that's made up. Inside the van, Green wasn't like, oh, I do declare I would like to go back and apologize, right? And then they bring him back, and then he viciously tries to headbutt them while he's handcuffed. No, they brought him back to kick the crap out of him in the house, and Crystal knows it. And so what did he do? He finally reported it like any good, honest cop would. In fact, current Baltimore police officer, but who's anonymous, said Crystal has always been good to his word. He screwed up his whole career over it. So now, why? I mean, if you've got a good cop who's turning in the bad cops, isn't that what the cops say would normally happen? I mean, if they broke the law, you've got a police officer right there who turns them in. That's great. So if it's just a few bad apples, Williams and the other guys who beat up the accused, if they're just a few bad apples and all the other cops are good, well, they're going to celebrate what Joe Crystal did here, right? You know that's not how this story ends. So he starts getting called, quote, a snitch and a rat cop. Now, one of the guys he confided to was a guy named Cherry, and Cherry was, of course, not on his side. And they explain here that just over a week after speaking to Cherry, the day after Thanksgiving, Crystal was at his home with his wife, Nicole. He stepped outside of his car and found a dead rat tucked under the windshield wiper. Now, he said he welled up. He couldn't help himself, but he wanted to make sure his wife didn't see that, and then he called the cops, but the cops are the bad guys. They're the ones who put it there anyway. Now, nobody ever found out exactly who did it. He obviously had his suspicions, but let's say it wasn't a coincidence that a dead rat was put on his windshield wiper. Well, Bob Cherry is the guy that I'm talking about here. He's the former president of Baltimore's Fraternal Order of Police. Now, Joe Crystal is a police officer in Baltimore. Cherry should be on his side. He told Crystal when he tried to report what the other cops had done wrong, hey, quote, blood in, blood out. That means we protect our own, okay? We don't care what they did. We don't care if it's wrong. We don't care if it's illegal. No. It's not a few bad apples. You're looking at the orchard, son. We're the whole orchard. So, more specifically, Joe Crystal explains, Cherry was basically saying that once you're in here, you die here. What happens in the family stays in the family. They're mad at me because I went against that rule. I remember saying to him, are we fucking cops or are we in a gang? Which one is it? You can't have it both ways. Well, that is exactly it. It's the same exact mentality that gangs have in the street. Snitches get stitches. Nobody ever snitches, right? Same thing for cops. So what is it? Are you protecting the law or are you breaking the law? And if you break the law, isn't your job the job of the other cops, if they're in fact good cops, if the problem isn't the orchard but a few bad apples, to turn that guy and go, that's not us, man. That guy who's stealing or abusing people or using excessive force, that's not us. It's a few bad apples. No. The orchard circles the wagons and goes, yes, it's family, blood in, blood out, just like the gangs. Snitches get stitches. They get dead rats on their cars. Okay, and they also, of course, get ridden out of town. So when the trial comes of the cops that broke the guy's ankle, beat the crap out of him, Sergeant Robert Amador, who was the first guy that Crystal went to, comes by Crystal and says, you better pray to God you're not the star witness, because your career is already fucked. If you're the star witness, you may as well just resign. Of course, he was the star witness. He was the only witness, so he had to testify. Williams got 45 days in jail. The other guy did not get any jail time at all. The other cop that participated in the beatdown, and they went along, right? But Joe Crystal, not welcome with the Baltimore PD anymore and forced to resign. So there's your one good, honest cop, and what happened to him? So eventually, he had to move down and become a deputy sheriff in a small little town in Florida. Look, the guy's got policing in his blood. He wants to go back to a major city. I'll tell you his travails there in a second. But he sued because he said, look, this is unbelievable, man. I did what I'm supposed to do, and look at what they did to me. The lawsuit alleges that Crystal lost his security clearance with the FBI, was put on midnight shifts working burglaries, and was frequently transferred to new departments, told to clean out his office at a moment's notice. It actually reminds me a little bit of what happened to Ashley Banfield when she told the truth about the Iraq War on media. Her office was moved into a closet. Look, if you're not part of the team, okay, and you don't play ball, you're going to get outcast, okay? And if you're an honest cop who's going to report excessive force by other cops, this is what you got coming to you. But it's not just in Baltimore. This haunts him to this day as he continues to apply for other jobs. Let me tell you about that. Huffington Post explains he continues to apply to jobs, hoping to move to a bigger city with more action. But in the past week alone, he's received rejection letters from 3 departments across the country. Crystal said he ranked 5th on a written exam to join the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, but still got rejected. The department told HuffPost he passed his written, oral, and physical exams, but failed a background check and declined to comment as to why. Gee, I wonder what was in his background check when they asked the Baltimore officers about Joe Crystal. They were probably warned, watch out, that guy's honest. He's a real problem for the rest of us. Since Crystal blew the whistle, other Baltimore cops have become hesitant to report misconduct in the department. One officer who was black wrote a complaint about hearing another officer use the N-word in front of him. Later, the officer asked his complaint be redacted, citing fears he would face the same retaliation Crystal did. See, message delivered. Not just Crystal in Baltimore. Crystal can't get a job in other places now, but also every other cop who had the intention to be honest. Oh, you better watch yourself. We don't allow that around here. Okay, from that Baltimore police officer. He said, I just watched the detective that I know go through an enormous amount of stress and eventual severance from the department for a complaint he made against fellow detectives. I really do not wish to experience even a fraction of what he went through. Now, you're telling me the problem isn't the culture of policing in America? That every time we see abuse recorded through a cell phone camera or anything else, that it's just a few bad apples, rogue actors, that the overwhelming majority of cops do the right thing, and that if somebody doesn't do the right thing, they turn them in and they say that's a bad apple? Come on, you don't even believe that. You know you don't believe that. You know every part of this story is true. You know that if they turn in another officer, no matter what he did, how hideous it was, they will get the same treatment that Joe Crystal got. You know that every other cop who has an intention of being honest will be intimidated into inaction, as you see in this story. Finally, Joe Crystal said, look, if I didn't do anything, the system continues to get messed up. Well, that is the God's honest truth. He did something, and the system is still messed up. Instead of Joe Crystal helping the system to get better, the system crushed him. That's what it does to a few honest cops. So it's not that cops are bad people. That would be absurd, okay? It is that we have set up a culture of policing in this country where they run by, unfortunately, some of the same rules as the gangs. That if there are bad apples and bad actors, and there appear to be plenty, they are forever protected. And if anyone actually tries to turn them in, well, they will face a lot of trouble. And remember, it's not just about protecting their own, right? It's that inside this culture breeds the idea of being above the law. We can beat anybody up we like. We can shoot them, we can taser them, we can do anything we want, because none of us are ever going to turn on one another. We have the guns, we have the badges, and there are no other witnesses. And when we go, because if they were among the cops, we turn on them. And if it's just a person we're arresting, what credibility do they have? We always win. We don't even go to a jury because the prosecutors protect us. Everybody protects us. We're above the law. And you're surprised those guys turn around and wind up abusing the law and abusing their power? If you build a system like that, of course they will. Not because they're bad people, but because it's a bad system. So for God's sake, let's fix the system. Young Turks.